Okay, hi, I'm Virginia Graham, mortgage broker, ex-model and host of the Intelligent Property Investor podcast. Today, we're speaking with Kathleen Chu from Ledger Legal, a trusted legal expert with 20 years experience who helps clients navigate the property buying process with confidence. If you've ever wondered what you should be thinking about before you sign anything, then this episode's for you. Welcome, Kathleen.
Hello, Virginia.
Hi. So in your 20 years experience, who have you helped the most in that time? Like what sort of clients would you mostly be helping?
First home buyers and investors, and the odd mom and dad downsizing.
Okay. So how would you go about helping a first home buyer? Like on the property journey, at what stage should they come to you?
I think they should come to me as soon as they are thinking about buying their property, their first property, so that I can guide them through the process and make sure they're in touch with a broker to get their finances pre-approved if they haven't done so already.
And then once they come to you, then do you explain things like the timelines and where do you help people? Is it mostly in this area? Is it the state, or where do you work?
I help them with New South Wales purchases, mostly in Sydney, but all over New South Wales.
Yep.
And I tell them the timing of contract reviews, when we get a building and pest report, and when we get a strata report if they're buying a unit.
Okay. And so are most people buying units if they're first time owners in Sydney?
Yes. Yeah. And then they upsize later.
Yeah. And so what sorts of things come out if you're a first timer right now and you're looking at buying a unit in Sydney, what are the sorts of things you would tell them to be aware of?
We would make sure the day-to-day admin funds are healthy, that the capital works fund for the long-term maintenance works are also healthy, like tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands for a bigger scheme. Make sure there are no structural defects or water ingress issues because they can cost a lot of money to fix, and that they don't have any disputes with adjoining lots or no lot owners fighting each other in the scheme, because that's not pleasant.
And how would you find that? Is it from the contract?
From the strata report, which is about $250 and worth every dollar.
And are they a lot of pages as well?
Smaller schemes, about 150 pages. Large, massive schemes can be up to 1,000 pages because they list everything in the report with defects, any issues, all the insurances, the whole past history. It's all in there.
Should you be worried if it's starting at 1,000 pages?
If most of the issues have been fixed, no.
Yeah.
If any.
Yeah. So it just depends on the unit. Yeah.
Yep.
And so then when they then go to upsize, what happens then? Like what sort of things will they look out for? What time frame would they come to you in? How does it work?
They usually know what to look for, like the property sold as is. They know to have their finances pre-approved before they come to me. So the process is a lot quicker the second time around in terms of what I do from the contract perspective.
And how is it different for a house and for a unit? Because they'd probably be upsizing to a house, a lot of them, wouldn't they? Or do they just go to a bigger unit?
We need to get a building and pest report. They do cost a bit more than a strata report, but they'll tell you if there are structural issues, asbestos, Sometimes they also tell you if the granny flat is not approved, because sometimes inspectors do look at that as well, and you don't want that problem to fall onto you to have to demolish or get registered as approved when you become the owner.
And is that all in the contract? Like how would you know it's there if it's not in the contract?
We usually ask the owner if they have done any unauthorized work at the property, and sometimes they have a special condition in the contract that this has not been approved, the problem falls onto you, then the buyer knows what they're getting into.
Oh, wow. What if there was one and they didn't put it in the contract at all? Like what if they just built a granny flat and didn't mention it?
We usually do council checks as well.
Oh, okay.
Just to make sure. And if there's nothing recorded at council, we ask them what's going on.
Yeah. So do you actually look at the property then to know how would you know it was there?
Usually they tick granny flat or on the front page of the contract.
Oh, okay. So
or if there's like a pergola, they are supposed to tick it as well.
Yeah. So it's obvious from the contract what's going on then?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. And then you were saying two other things I want to ask you about. One is downsizes.
Mm-hmm.
So how does that work?
Usually if the mom and dad have the kids move out of home, then they might want to get a smaller property. So it's usually the same process as well. they have pre-approval, or sometimes they don't need brokers or finance, like their moms and dads.
Yeah.
But I still have to look at the contract and the building and press report to make sure everything's in order before they buy. And sometimes they do downsize to strata units.
Yeah.
So we have to look at the strata report.
And what about SMSFs?
They are a bit rare, but we have to be careful of the entity that goes onto the contract when they first exchange. And then once the bare trust is set up, once contracts have exchanged, we need to rescind the first contract and enter into new contracts to avoid double duty issues.
Yeah. So this is general advice only. So when you, in general, when you do one, how soon in the process then would they come to you? Is it before they even set up the bare trust or the trust at all? Or?
Usually they do, because the bare trust isn't set up till they purchase the property.
Yeah.
But usually as soon as they think about buying under an SMSF, they should come with me so that I can tell them the next steps and make sure the timing's right.
Yeah.
And work with their broker and accountant as well.
Yeah.
To make sure all the entities are correct.
Yeah. And because there's a lot of entities involved, isn't there?
And the bare trust, the custodian trust, and the
And it's got to be non-trading. There's all these rules around them.
Very strict compliance for SMSFs.
And there's one rule if it's buying business real property and another rule if it's buying an investment property.
You can't use it yourself for a residential property, so you have to lease it out, and they do that. But if it's a business office, they can lease it to a party that's related to them in a way.
Yeah.
Like they set up another entity and lease it to that entity.
Yeah. But it's still not actually technically themselves. Yeah.
Correct. You can't do that.
Yeah. And what about auditing super funds? I guess that's more an accounting question, isn't it?
Yep. I have to provide them the statements and adjustments promptly after settlement so that they can check with their accountant to make sure it's all in order.
Okay. And so what would from all your 20 years experience, what would be your top 3 tips for property investors?
Make sure you do your due diligence for any works that you might want to do at the property to get equity and growth.
Yeah.
And have me check the contract thoroughly. And
timelines, I think, as well, maybe.
Make sure you take your time and look for the right property.
Yeah. So do your research, do your diligence, and
ask any questions before you enter into the contract. Otherwise, afterwards, you find out, I can't do that after all. I can't put a granny flat on.
Yeah, so you've got to do a lot of due diligence. And for that due diligence, where do most people go to look to research properties if they're going to develop them?
They can speak with their council planner at the relevant council, and we can look at the zoning certificate to see what they can and cannot do, what they need approval for, exempt development, complying development. If it's heritage listed or in a heritage area, that might restrict works that they might want to do.
I never thought of all those things. That's good to know. And when they do improvements, is it usually on a house or a unit or both?
A lot of people are renovating units now before they move in, and they should get strata approval before they do anything, even painting. I know painting doesn't really affect common property, but I always tell them to check with the owner's corporation first anyway. Floorboards, check with owner's corporation. Bathroom, kitchen renovations. Even if you're not doing waterproofing works, just check with them. Because if works are not approved and it was supposed to be approved, if anything goes wrong, the liability is the lot owners.
Oh. So, and it's the same with, it's the same with the properties too, isn't it?
Houses.
If you don't.
If you built a granny flat without approval, you have to knock it down or get retrospective approval.
And is it difficult to get retrospective? I imagine it would be.
It's not difficult, it's just more work.
Yeah. More work than if you just asked in the first place.
Yep.
Yeah. Oh, that's good. Oh, well, they're great tips for us. Thanks, Kathleen. There's so many important tips for us and reminders about protecting your property when buying. Up next, I'm going to speak to Julianne Zammit from Finance on the Coast to continue the conversation, looking at the finance risks that can also derail a property deal. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Virginia. Thank you.